From the beginning of the indigenous movement and consistently since then, indigenous peoples have been stressing the significance of lands and territories for their cultural, physical, as well as spiritual survival. They have been explaining that their relation to the land is very special for their cultures, for their cultural survival. According to indigenous worldviews, or in Spanish, cosmovisiones, the land does not belong to us, humans. We belong to the land. This is our Earth Mother that cares for us and sustains all living things. Indigenous peoples explained at length the cultural significance of their collective affiliation to the land. The land cannot be cut into small parcels and owned and sold as if it were an object. From the indigenous people's perspective, we cannot sell our Earth Mother, our Mother Earth. During the debates on the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, they therefore explained why for them land rights are not the same as private property rights, but something quite different, and that therefore this needed to be recognized boldly in the declaration. As we discussed in Module 2, a major political and legal concept imposed by colonizing powers has been the concept of empty land, terra nullius. This ideology, made into law, with implications continuing in our times, assumed that the lands invaded by colonizers were empty of people. The colonized indigenous peoples were viewed as heathens and were dehumanized by the colonizers. The doctrine of discovery, created by Christian nations and endorsed by Pope Alexander VI via the papal bull Inter Caetera in 1493, established a spiritual, political, and legal justification for colonization and seizure of land not inhabited by Christians. It has been invoked since as a reason to erase indigenous land rights and indigenous sociocultural and economic systems different from those of the colonizers. The land systems imposed by the colonizers did not, for example, take into account that communities of hunters-gatherers, nomadic pastoralists, and others occupied and used the land according to their own indigenous systems. Thus, agriculture linked to a sedentary lifestyle was accepted as the only way of life compatible with post-colonial policies and within which other ways of life had to be subsumed. In other words, there has been discrimination against those cultures, something that needs to be addressed and remedied. So, what are and were the problems that indigenous peoples have brought to international attention regarding lands? It should be noted that this includes waters as well. Land grabbing by companies, individuals, or the state itself. Even if it is not the state itself, the state has encouraged and facilitated this by explicit laws and policies. For example, what happened over the centuries in settler colonial states. Prohibition of the use of indigenous traditional lands and waters for subsistence economic activities, such as fishing and hunting. For example, in the Russian Far East and other parts of Siberia and Khabarovsk, Kamchatka, indigenous peoples cannot fish, while commercial and recreational fishing is allowed. Similarly, subsistence salmon fishing in Alaska has also been hindered. In addition, pollution erodes indigenous peoples' lands and indigenous peoples' health. This includes nuclear and other toxic dumping on indigenous peoples' lands, for example, in Russia and the United States of America. Militarization of indigenous peoples' lands, use of lands for military purposes in order to control indigenous lands and erode indigenous peoples' authority, such as, for example, in Bangladesh and Indonesia. Non-recognition of collective ownership of land, privatization of land and distribution to individuals, thus making the sale of the land easier and eroding the community's survival as such, as for example in Mexico and Ecuador. Mega projects such as dams, artificial lakes, mining, logging, etc., as is the case in Bangladesh, Brazil, Chile, Peru, Ecuador, Nicaragua, the Philippines. Outright settlement of indigenous lands by the state, bringing in settlers and promoting a policy of change of the demographic composition of the area, as is the case in the Chittagong Hill Tracts in Bangladesh. declaration of indigenous areas as natural conservation areas, leading to the clearing of the areas from the indigenous peoples, for example, the San people in Botswana and the Amerindians in Guyana, or as cultural heritage of humanity, as seen in indigenous lands in Tanzania. Expansion of the so-called biofuels or ethanol cultivations, such as oil palm in Asia, corn or sugarcane in the Americas, resulting in land grabbing of indigenous lands and further displacement of indigenous peoples. Some repercussions of these problems have been massive uprooting and displacement of indigenous peoples, conflict and loss of life, rape of women and girls, loss of the cultural and spiritual base of the indigenous peoples, and thus threat to their survival as specific cultures and groups, threat of physical and cultural extinction, loss of health remedies, and overall deterioration of indigenous health, impoverishment, and further marginalization.